this video we'll be looking at the difference between in-place motions and root motions, and we'll be looking at the flip horizontal button and the flip hip button and when you should use them. So in order to demonstrate the difference between in-place motions and root motions, I have my avatar set up here in Cartoon Animator 5, and on the top avatar I'm going to show you in-place motions, and on the bottom avatar I'm going to show you root motions. And we're going to pretty much do the exact same animation, which will be a walk from right to left and then back again from left to right, which is something that a lot of beginners with Cartoon Animator struggle with, partially because of not knowing the difference between in-place motions and root motions. So I'm going to demonstrate that for you, and we're going to show you the various issues between the two different motions. So to get started, I've got my avatar here, and we're going to start with in-place motions. So going to go into the pack side of the content manager, and we're going to select free resources. So we've got this animation pack here, and we're going to go into that. And before I go any further, if you've got your thumbnails set to automatically show these animations, you can actually turn these off, because you don't need all of these animations to be playing, and it will save your processor a bit of time. Go into the menu here and uncheck this animated thumbnail. Now that you've done that, you can see that there's some information on the side of the character thumbnail there. I can't put the mouse over it and point them out, because as you can see, it automatically brings up the animated version of the character. But basically what this is showing, if you look at the top icon that's here, that's indicating that this is a character animation. The second icon, which is the arrow pointing to the left, indicates that this is a side motion, and this bottom icon here that looks like a 4-quadrant grid is indicating that this is also a full form deformation or FFD motion. But moving on, I want to get you to the same directory that I'm using. So we're in this animation pack. We're going down into 2D motions here. So up at the top along these icons, you would click 2D. So now we've got this, and I've got the show subfolder items, so that everything in the folders below this will show. If you uncheck that, it'll just show the folders, and we'll keep going down. But I find it's handier to have this checked. Then from there, we need to go into G3 Human. I'm going to go to the Mail folder, and we're going to go to Side folder, where we've got 47 motions in this folder, and I'm going to cut this down to just the walks. So I've got walk in here. If you haven't got this there, you just type walk into the search bar, and that will now limit this to just walk motion. And you'll see here we've got 6 of them. 3 of these are actually in-place motions, and 3 of them are root motions, and they're each part of the same sequence. So if you see how these are named, this is named walk forward 1S, and the 1S stands for, it's the first part of the sequence, and it's the S says start. And then over here we've got walk forward 2L, which stands for the second part of the sequence, and this is a loop, so you can loop this particular motion clip. And then we've got walk forward 3E, and the E obviously stands for end, and the 3 is the third part of this particular sequence here. Now I know this is all the same sequence because it's got the same name, walk forward, walk forward, walk forward. Now if we scroll down a little bit, we've now got, after that we've got walk 1S, and the same naming convention, 1 first part of the sequence and S for start, and we've got walk 2 loop, second part of the sequence, and L for loop. And we've got walk 3E, third part of the sequence, and E for end. In previous versions of Cartoon Animator, root motions would have 3 lines in the bottom right corner here indicating that this was a root motion, but they've done away with that particular convention, and they seem to be favouring making the difference in the actual name of file. So this is called walk forward, which means that this motion is going to walk forward when I apply it, and you'll see the character walk forward, whereas this sequence is just walk, so that when I apply it, the character will walk on the spot, and that should give you a clue. The motion clips that activate and have the character do anything on the spot are called in-place motion. So I'm going to start our walk sequence with my top avatar, and we're going to start with our in-place motions. And you'll see when I apply this just by double clicking, making sure my character is selected, the character starts to walk on the spot. Now, without moving the playhead, I can now apply the second part of that motion, which is the walk to loop. So here we go, and you'll see the character is walking along, and then now we can apply the end part of the motion, again not moving the playhead at all. You see all of that happened on the spot. The character itself didn't move anywhere. If I stop the timeline and press play, so the character walks on the spot. And if we go into the timeline, making sure we've got this icon selected so that only the selected items tracks showing. You may not have FFD showing. I've been working on this before, so yours may look like this, but you'll need the FFD track open if you're using FFD, because we'll need to do some adjustments in that track later as well. But you can see here we've got the 3 clips we just used, these yellow ochre coloured tracks here. We've got our walk start, our walk to loop, and our walk 3 end. Now, to make this character actually walk, we simply move it on the screen using the transform track, which is this track here. Clicking that button, if you haven't got that turned on, you'll want it turned on. And what we want to do is put the playhead back to the start, and then we're going to watch this character. And I think I'm going to go into my preview camera so that we can focus a little more just on that character for the moment. Move it over here, and we're going to watch for when these feet, the character actually starts to take their first step. So we'll just drag the playhead. You see they're not moving, and now the feet are starting to slide. So what we're going to do is put in a keyframe just there, which you can do either by hitting this button here, add key, or just double clicking in the track. And we're doing that so that the character doesn't actually move between here and here, because they're not really moving at all just yet. And now we want to move the character all the way over to here. We're going to go to the end of the walk to when the character stops moving, is about there, and we're going to click and drag the character across, and to make sure he stays along the exact same line, we can hold the shift key down, and that will ensure that the character walks completely straight. Let's say we want to go to about there, and now when we go back to the start and I play the animation, you'll see the character's now walking along, but you'll notice that the character's feet are sliding quite a lot. Which is not what we want, and the way to fix that is to go to the point at the end here that you wanted it to go to, and what we're going to do is drag the character back towards the start and then test the animation, see if the character's feet are still sliding. So we move it back to there, and now how's that look? Still got a tiny bit of sliding, so we could probably move it back just a little bit more. Maybe try there, see how that looks. That's not looking too bad, so maybe we'll leave that about there. But say we wanted the character to walk the rest of that distance, so in order to do that, all we have to do is move this out, like so. That's our end walk. We need to make room for the character to walk a bit more, and in order to do that, all we need to do is loop this particular motion clip, and to do that we need to make sure this icon here, the loop icon, is selected, not this icon which is referred to as the speed icon. With the loop icon selected, we can hit the edge of this clip here and you see the cursor changes. Click and drag, and you'll see we've just looped that once. If we wanted to undo that, we could click the end and drag it back like so. but we want it to go. And now we can put our walk back on the end of that clip. But you'll notice up on the top here with our FFD track, our walk end is still over here and nothing happened. So what we want to do is move that as well, so that it matches the walk end clip here. And you'll see at the moment the FFD clip's working, and we get past here, character stops moving and there's no FFD happening, so we've got to loop the FFD clip as well. So there we go, now we've got the FFD clip looped. But you'll notice the character is now walking on the spot at that point. So all we need to do is again grab our keyframe here, and we want to place it where the character stops walking up here in about frame 147. Bring that up to there, 147. And you'll notice that didn't actually do anything, and the character is only walking to halfway point. So what we need to do is now hold down the shift key, making sure we're on our new keyframe at 147. Hold down the shift key and move the character again. And then it's the same process we did before. We just check it, see if the feet look like they're sliding. You can see it's got a tiny little bit of slide in there. Go back to the end, maybe just move him back a little bit. See how that looks. And that's looking pretty good. So if we play the animation now, it's not too bad. So that's how you do a walk from right to left with in-place motions. Now we're going to look at using root motions. So we'll go back here to this camera and select our second avatar, and we're going to use root motions. So in this menu we'll go up to the top, pack, and we'll start with our root motion walk forward 1S, making sure that we're back at the start of the animation. And I'm going to leave my first character up because this is basically the same animation, but one's using in-place motions and the other one is using root motion. You'll see when I click my character down here selected, click on the first motion, he starts to move off the spot, and you can see that his little root point, or his root bone here, is just down there, or pivot point, whatever you want to call it. And without moving the playhead, we're going to do his walk forward loop motion. And you'll see he's walking forward, keeping up quite nicely with our first character. And you'll notice this character has no foot sliding or anything at all. That's the benefit of root motions, is that they're pre-animated so that the movement will look exactly as you want it. You don't have to worry about foot sliding at all. Now logically, to make him walk that extra distance and make him keep going like our first character, you would think, oh, I can just loop the walk forward motion here, and that's what we're going to try. We'll select it, make sure loop's selected, and move the playhead over, and we're going to loop this motion once. You didn't see anything happen, but watch what happens when I scrub the playhead. You'll see he just jumped straight back to the original position, and he's walking forward again. And that's because this loop here is an exact copy of the original motion clip here, including the position where he starts from. So as soon as you get into the new version of the clip, it resets the character back to the start, and he walks the same steps again, which is not what we want. So in order to keep him walking, what we need to do is unloop that, go back to here, and then we can simply apply this walk forward loop motion again, like so. And you'll see now he's walking forward again, and everything is all good. Now if that didn't happen for you, I'll undo that. If for some reason that didn't happen for you, it may be because in the edit menu under motion clip you don't have align with previous motion check marked. This is usually check marked by default, but if not, I'll show you what happens if it's not. I'll uncheck that, and now we'll apply this walk motion. And you'll see what happened there was very similar to what happened with when we looped the character, or looped this motion clip. So you can see as soon as we go back there, he went back to the start, and that happened. Not what we want. So if that happened to you, all you have to do is undo this, make sure your playhead is on that point, go into the edit menu, motion clip, select align with previous motion, make sure that's check marked, and now when we do walk forward, you'll see the character continues on with his walk without resetting back to the start. So now that we've done that, we can do his end motion. Forward end. There we go. So I'll just close down the timeline and we'll run through that so you can compare the two. Go back to the start, hit the play button. You can see we've basically got the same walk but using two different motion types. We've got on the top, we've got in-place motions, and on the bottom we've got root motion. Now you might wonder why there's the different motions in the first place. Well, the reason for the different motions is that in-place motions, I select this, when you want to collect up that entire motion and save it as a complete motion clip using collect clip, will not actually pick up this transform track here, and what you'll end up with is all the characters' motion, but all end up being a walk in place motion. And if that's not what you want, and you wanted to save the actual character moving from right to left, as in this case, you would want to be using the root motion, because the transforms for root motions are stored inside the actual motion clip here. So you can see this transform motion, all the keyframes are in the actual clip, whereas with this one, got this transform is not part of the motion clip, and down here the transform has nothing in it, so these transforms don't affect this. And you can't just move the character, like go to this keyframe and make a keyframe here, because this transform is moving the pivot point and none of the character's bones, whereas this one down here is moving the character's root point, is that white dot that you can see there on the character. It's up to you which you use. It depends on what you're actually using your characters for. The in-place motions might be better if you're animating characters to eventually be used in a video game, whereas the root motions might be better for people who are animating cartoon shorts and you just want the characters to move around as you want them to move without having to do all this messing around trying to stop the feet sliding. Now we're going to move on to the flip horizontal button and the flip hip button. This is usually where beginners tend to get a little bit unstuck, so I'm going to go back to the preview camera, and this is my in-place motions guy that we animated first. And let's say we wanted him to get all the way over to here, and then we wanted him to turn around and walk back. Now the logical thing is to go straight for the flip horizontal button up in the toolbar up here, and you can see I've got it selected. You've also got vertical flip here, but the horizontal one is the one you're likely to use. So we select that, and you'll see the character flips horizontally just like you would expect, and now we're just going to start him walking again using our in-place motions. So on the in-place ones, so do walk one start, apply that, and you'll notice he doesn't move, he's walking in place, and that's fine. So we're also going to add his two walk in place motions here. So without moving the playhead, we're going to go click this once. You see he's still walking in place, and we're going to loop that once. So making sure the loop button is selected. Up here, rub the timeline along, loop that once, and we'll loop the FFD as well to match it. And we'll bring the playhead up to here, and we'll add the walk end motion in. And you'll see everything worked pretty much how you would expect it to, other than he's walking on the spot. And you'll notice when we get back to the first part of the motion, none of that has been affected at all. He's moving how we animated him. So all we have to do now is exactly the same as what we did before, and put in those transform keyframes on the transform track. So starting here, we'll go when his foot starts to slide. From there, double click, put in a keyframe, and then we'll move the playhead when he's coming to a stop about there. And we can put in a keyframe here, but we've got to move him as well all the way back to the start. So hold down the shift key, click and drag, and we'll move him back to the start until this little white dot here lines up with our original white dot, like so. And with any luck, should all be okay. If I play this animation now, he walks along, turns around, a little bit of skiddiness in the start there. You see what's happening with that. Right, so we'll go back to that middle bit up here, roll along. When he flips, so what I actually did there was I put my keyframe here a little bit into my walk loop instead of here, so it wants to go on frame 156. Click and drag that. 156 is there. That should fix up that little bit of foot sliding. There we go. And we're all good. Got loop going, so you can see that all works as expected, and nothing too difficult about that. Now we're going to go back to the root motions down here, and we're going to try the exact same thing. So with this character now selected, we're going to go to the end of his walk motion here, and we're going to apply the flip horizontal button, and we'll see what happens. So you'll notice I just clicked it and he automatically flipped all the way over there. And what you'll also notice about this is that if I start heading the playhead back, he flips back. And the reason why this is happening is because the root of this character is this point just here, and the flip horizontal button flips the character around the root location. So if I did this now and then I added in my walk forward start motion, you can see that's bringing the character back around. Now, as I was making this video, I learnt something new about the flip horizontal button, and that is it does actually work with these motions. Even though what you've seen here is that the character is completely flipped like this, you can see in the flip track here underneath the flip button, that keyframe there is where I click the flip horizontal button. And now if I add, despite what's going on here, now if I add my walk forward start, you'll see the character has moved back to where they were. They flipped like we want them to, and the character is moving forward. And if I do my walk forward loop motion, character is still walking forward, and if I do it again, character is still walking forward. And now if I add my walk forward end motion, character walked forward perfectly fine, and he's actually doing a complete loop because I had the loop on. So you can see that worked with no problems. I think it had something to do with where I applied that flip keyframe. If I move this over, see if that makes any difference. You'll notice it's all working fine, except if I move this over, you can see some pretty weird things going on. But as long as I flip that at the beginning of my walk forward start, everything's fine and he keeps going. But let's say you wanted to save this motion clip out, complete with the walk left to right and then right to left. This flip track, just like the transform track, isn't included in the collect clip. So if I did a collect clip of this particular motion now, that flip keyframe wouldn't be included, and what we would get, if I delete this keyframe here, is we would get this motion. So if I stop that and we'll go play, this is what would be collected up. You'd walk forward, get to this point, and move all the way to the other side, and that's not what you want. So if you wanted to have this as one complete motion that you save, in that situation you'll want to use the flip hip button, which is found in the 2D motion key editor. And to use this button, make sure our character is where we want it. So we're going to apply the walk forward start motion, like so. And you'll notice the character started walking the other way, which is not what we want. We'll go back to the start of that motion that we've just applied. Go into the 2D motion key editor and click flip hip. And now you'll see the character is walking the other way. And you'll see there's a actual flip hip track within the motion clip here, and you can see that's where we've applied the flip hip just there. Now I'm going to go through and add in my other motions. My walk forward motion, root motion. And you'll see the character immediately started walking the other way. I'm not concerned by that at the moment. I'm just going to add my second loop motion, and then I'm going to add my walk end motion, walk forward end. Now I'm going to go back to the start where I want that flip to happen. So we've got this one where he's already flipped and starting to walk back. Now we're going to do the same for this motion here. We're going to open up the 2D motion key editor, and making sure we're at the start of our walk forward motion, we're just going to go flip hip, and you can see now the character is walking back the right way until we hit the next walk forward motion, and then he flips and he's going back again. So we want to change that, hit flip hip again, and again, now he's going the right way. We'll head back and we'll keep going till we hit our walk forward end, and you'll see flips again, so we've got to use flip hip one more time, and now we have the character walking back. That's how you use the flip hip button if you want the flips to be included in your motion clips. And what I'll do is I'll go back to the start, close down the timeline now, and we'll just play the animation. But you can see both of them looking pretty much the same. It's the same motion, it's just that the top animation was using the in-place version of that walk forward, while the bottom animation is using the root motion version. I hope you found this demonstration useful and you now have a better understanding of in-place motions and root motions, as well as the flip horizontal button and the flip hip buttons and when to use them. Now if you found this tutorial useful, I have a whole range of tutorials on my Lazy Animator website at thelazyanimator.com. Everything's there for you to learn Cartoon Animator 5 quickly as possible so that you can get up to speed and be animating your own projects sooner. So feel free to check that out. That's it for this video. Bye for now.